Hey guys, Johnny Page here over at Silvertrac Software, and in this video we're going to talk about 7 things that every daily activity report should include. All right, so we're gonna start off, we'll talk about some of the basics that should be in every daily activity report, but then I will give you 3 ways to go above and beyond and really deliver value to your client through the daily activity reports. Now, I'm not gonna cover a ton of examples here in this video, but if you check out the article on our blog, I will provide some examples of daily activity reports that have really gone above and beyond and are hitting home runs for their clients, okay? So be sure to check that out. All right, so let's dive into the basics that need to be included on your daily activity report. All right, so when we're talking about the basics of a daily activity report, it needs to include some things like time on and time off, shift change information, any kind of like pass down logs, all of the routine preventative measures that you do on site. We need to include incidents. Most customers may not require all of these things to be in their daily activity reports, but part of being a professional in the security industry is that you hold a professional standard, whether your clients hold that or not. You never know when you're going to need a detailed report, and the daily activity reports can be a very effective tool for strengthening the relationship with the client, moving the perception of your services away from being a cost center towards really being a partner of that client. And you can't do that with DARs that are just like rounding off entries, code for, no issues to report, or heaven forbid, no DARs at all. All right, so let's dive into the 4 elements that every DAR has to have when we're covering the basics. Let's start off with arrivals and departure times. So you need to make sure that when your guard is coming on site, they're not rounding off the start times. That's a really bad start to the report that we want to be accurate and valid. If they're rounding their start times to the times that it was scheduled to start rather than writing down the times that they actually started, we're not getting off to the right start here. So make sure that you're either using a guard management software or a timekeeping solution that would actually put the right start time. So if we're starting at 8 p.m., sometimes it's going to be 7:58, sometimes it'll be 8:02. But we need to start off and end the shift with accurate start and end times. Of course, you want to encourage punctuality, but we don't want the officer lying and always writing down 0800 or rounding off the times they're starting. It's just not a great start to the report, and technically it's not true. The second thing we need to include is any kind of shift change information. Now, there's 2 ways of going about doing this. Number 1, you may be actually having a shift change where one officer is relieving another. In that case, we recommend including any kind of pass downs that were received from the officer that was previously working. So the new officer's first entry should be information that they received that's relevant to the client and to the report from the previous officer. If it's a cold start, another best practice here would be to start the report with how the guard is going to begin the shift. Things like officer is on site, ready for duty, I've got all the equipment, it's in normal working condition, I'm about to begin my routine patrols, or something to that effect. Just a way for the guard to say, hey, I'm here, I'm on site, and I'm off to a good start. The third thing that needs to be in the basics of a daily activity report is all of the routine and preventative measures that are handled on site. And this is really going to make up the bulk of the report. We want to make sure we stay away from things like all secured, no issues to report, all is well, especially with some of those handwritten reports having those rounded off times at the top of every hour. I can't tell you how many times I've seen companies using reports where they say like 2100, all clear, 2200, no issues to report. Those just don't really communicate a ton of value. Anything you're doing to prevent bad things from happening needs to go into the daily activity report. If we don't want to be viewed as a cost center, you need to make sure that there's somewhere in your reports that's showing the customer everything you're doing to reduce the number of incidents that are happening on site. We want to show that the work you're doing is making a positive impact on the property. That happens when we include all of the routine preventative measures that happen on the property. The last basic element we're going to cover that needs to be included in the daily activity report would be any exceptions to the norm. So anything that happens out of the ordinary. Now, of course, incidents are going to get their own incident report, but we should also be including things like having positive contacts or negative contacts with anyone on site, any kind of safety hazards, lights out, sort of those like middle level cautionary items that'll happen, things that are out of the ordinary or unusual, may not necessarily warrant an incident report, but we just want to make sure that if there's there's something unusual happening on the property, it's documented in the report. And then of course, we always recommend noting within the timeline of the daily activity report when an incident occurred, if there was an incident on the property. So that way, when you're looking at the daily activity report, you'll know if there was an incident created during that shift. Now that we've covered the basics of what needs to go into your daily activity report, let's talk about a couple of ways that you can step up the value of these reports to your clients. The first way is that we need to prove value to the client. We need to make sure that when the customer reads the report, they feel like it's a valuable interaction with our security team. One way that we see this being done is by including photos with the daily activity reports. Allowing your customers to get those snapshots of what the guard is seeing really helps increase the sense of value the customer feels when they look at the reports. If you think about it, most of your clients and clients in the security industry as a whole would love to spend the security budget somewhere else if they had a choice. So we want the report to work against that view of security being a cost center. One way we can do that is by including photos in the reports and just finding additional ways to really deliver value to the client and documenting that in the daily activity report. Item number 6, your daily activity reports should reduce risk and liability for the client. When you're making those routine preventative patrols around the property, we need to make sure that we're documenting what we're looking for and what we're attempting to prevent. Maybe we're doing a patrol of the east stairwell. So we might say, officer patrolled the east stairwell looking for any safety hazards. We checked the lighting and the signage and the handrails to make sure that they were in normal working condition. That way, if there's ever a slip, trip, and fall hazard or a lawsuit, we have the documentation we need to help show that there was due diligence on behalf of the customer. Last but not least, your daily activity reports should reaffirm the partnership with the client. Sit back and think, what is it that my customer really cares about, and make sure that we are documenting the officer's actions around those items in the daily activity report. For example, if you're working a construction site and their big concern is theft in the storage containers, make sure that we mention the storage containers by name in the daily activity report. Oftentimes, multiple times throughout the shift, you're saying, hey, we checked the storage containers, they're locked. That way the customer feels that the guard really understands what it takes to perform well at the property, and we've got it documented in the report. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thanks so much for checking this out. Drop us a note if there was something that you include in your daily activity reports that we didn't include in the video here. I'd love to hear back from you. If you are looking at this video and say, hey Johnny, that's great, but I'm not really sure I could get my officers to include all of that in the average DAR, then I would love to have a conversation with you. Visit silvertracsoftware.com and in the top right hand corner, click get a demo, schedule a demo with our team, and we'll show you how security companies like yours are delivering amazing daily activity reports every single day. All right, thanks so much for watching.